Welcome back to another explainer. If you've ever looked up at the night sky or just sat in a classroom and wondered how the universe really ticks, well, you are definitely in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most fundamental, fascinating, and beautifully predictable phenomena in all of physics. We're demystifying circular motion. So let's just dive right into this.
Have you ever actually stopped to wonder about this? I mean, why does a satellite keep orbiting Earth without just flying off into the dark abyss of space? Or bringing it down to Earth, why does a stone tied to a string move in a perfect little circle when you swing it above your head? These aren't random occurrences. From swinging a simple ball on a playground to the moon faithfully orbiting our planet, it's literally all governed by the exact same set of physical laws.
Let's get our definitions straight right out of the gate. Circular motion is the motion of an object along the circumference of a circle, or a circular path, while maintaining a constant distance from a fixed center. And that constant distance, we call that the radius. Now, it sounds super simple, right? A repetitive loop. But as we're about to see, from a physics perspective, the fact that the object's direction is continuously changing makes this motion anything but simple.
Here's our lesson plan for today's explainer. First, why don't things fly away? Second, the rules of the circle. Third, the invisible inward pull. Fourth, the math of the motion. And finally, circular motion in reality. All right, moving into our first section, why don't things fly away? To truly appreciate what we know today, we kind of have to look back at the historical quest to understand this seemingly simple yet incredibly complex motion.
It is absolutely fascinating to trace the evolution of human thought on this. Centuries ago, ancient Greek philosophers like Aristotle just assumed heavenly bodies naturally moved in perfect circles, simply because the circle was considered the most perfect geometric shape. Fast forward to the 16th century and Nicholas Copernicus shakes things up with the heliocentric model, placing the sun at the center, though he still assumed perfect circular orbits. Then, early 17th century, Johannes Kepler makes a massive breakthrough. He discovers planets actually move in elliptical or oval-shaped orbits. Finally, Sir Isaac Newton comes along in the late 17th century and ties the whole shebang together, explaining the continuous inward pull required for this motion. It's just centuries of science beautifully refining our understanding of the cosmos.
That brings us to Section 2, Rules of the Circle. Let's head back to the chalkboard basics and categorize the types of motion, just to make sure we all have our fundamental physics rules straight. You know, a lot of students confuse circular motion with rotational motion, but they're fundamentally different. Imagine a playground. If a child is riding on the edge of a merry-go-round, that child experiences circular motion because they're moving along a circular path around a fixed center. But the merry-go-round itself? That is undergoing rotational motion because the entire physical platform is rotating about its central axis. Notice the key difference here. In circular motion, typically a single point or object moves around a fixed center, kind of like a satellite orbiting Earth. In rotational motion, the whole body rotates around a fixed axis, like the Earth spinning to give us day and night. But here's a really fun fact. The exact same object can actually exhibit both types of motion simultaneously. I mean, the Earth orbits the Sun while rotating on its own axis.
We also need to split circular motion itself into two distinct categories. First, we've got uniform circular motion. This is like a smoothly rotating ceiling fan. The speed is absolutely constant. It doesn't speed up or slow down, but because the direction is always changing, it still has acceleration pointing toward the center. Next up is non-uniform circular motion. Think of a car hitting the gas pedal while taking a tight curve on a racetrack. The speed is changing, the direction is changing, and therefore you've got two types of acceleration happening all at once.
So, what's actually causing this acceleration? Let's move to Section 3, the invisible inward pull, and reveal the core aha concept of today's explainer. We're talking about the hidden forces that keep moving objects in check. The absolutely crucial takeaway is this. According to Newton's first law, an object wants to move in a straight line due to inertia. So, its velocity is always pointing straight ahead, tangent to the circle. But there's a continuous inward pull. Both the centripetal acceleration and the centripetal force always point directly toward the center of the circle. Because the velocity and the inward pull are perfectly perpendicular to each other, the object never gets pulled all the way into the center, nor does it fly away. It just keeps turning, endlessly.
You hear the word centripetal a lot in physics class, and honestly, it sounds a bit intimidating. But let's demystify that right now. It simply comes from Latin words meaning center seeking. Centripetal force isn't some magical, brand new force of nature we just discovered. It's simply a job description. It describes any force that happens to be pointing toward the center of a circular path.
So who's actually applying for that center-seeking job out in the real world? Well, for a satellite orbiting Earth, gravity is the invisible string acting as the centripetal force. For a stone tied to a string, it's the physical tension of the string itself. What about a car turning safely on a road? It's the friction between the tires and the asphalt. Without that friction, the car obeys inertia and skids in a terrifying straight line.
Let's step into Section 4, the math of the motion. Now, don't worry. I want you to reframe how you think about formulas. These aren't just tedious math problems. These are universal cheat codes used by scientists and engineers to literally build our modern world.
Consider this your ultimate physics cheat sheet. Notice how beautifully intertwined everything is here? The linear speed is just the distance, the circumference, 2 pi r, divided by the time it takes to make one trip, t. But look down at the centripetal force, mass times velocity squared, divided by the radius. This tells an engineer exactly how much structural support a roller coaster Luke needs based on the mass of the cart and how fast it's going.
Making a quick pit stop on terminology here. When measuring how often these circles happen, we use frequency, and 1 hertz simply means 1 revolution per second. So, if your computer's cooling fan is spinning at 60 hertz, that little blade is traveling its full circular path 60 times every single second.
Now, let's look at a crucial shortcut derived from our cheat sheet. If speed doubles, centripetal force becomes 4 times larger. Why? Because in our formula, velocity is squared. This is incredibly important for driving. If you take a circular curve at 40 miles per hour instead of 20, you don't need twice as much friction to stay on the road. You need 4 times as much friction. This is exactly why speed limits drop so dramatically on curved highway off-ramps. That leads us straight into Section 5, circular motion in reality. We're dismissing the classroom theory now and stepping out into the real world to see how these exact principles are operating all around us.
Think about these everyday marvels. Amusement park rides rely on calculated centripetal force to keep you safely pinned in your seat during a loop. Your washing machine rapidly spins its drum so that the clothes are forced in a circle, but the water escapes through the tiny holes due to inertia, which dries your clothes. And wind turbines? They capture linear wind and convert it into rotational circular motion to generate the electricity powering the device you're using right now.
So what should you take away from all this? Well, mastering these concepts allows us to explain celestial orbits, for sure, but it also allows mechanical engineers to design safer engines, tighter gears, and perfectly banked roads. It even saves lives in hospitals where medical centrifuges spin blood samples at massive speeds, using extreme centripetal acceleration to separate denser cells from plasma in mere minutes.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this mind-bending fact straight from our source material. Astronauts on the ISS aren't floating because there's zero gravity in space. Gravity is absolutely there. It's providing the centripetal force. The astronauts and the station are moving forward so fast that as gravity pulls them down, they continually fall around the curve of the Earth. They are in a state of continuous free fall. That is what causes the apparent weightlessness. It's pretty incredible, right?
Which brings us to our final point, and a bit of a curveball. We've spent this entire explainer mastering the laws of the perfect circle. But nature actually prefers ellipses. The orbits of the planets, the path of the moon, none of them are perfect circles. They're slightly squashed. So I leave you with this question to ponder. If all these rules govern perfect circles so beautifully, why is perfect circular motion actually incredibly rare in the physical universe? Keep that curiosity alive, keep asking questions, and I'll catch you in our next explainer.